Welcome back. This is the next episode of this session. So today's date is April 6th. For all information that we're referring to here. And I'm Alaric. I have a bachelor's in geology.
I'm Ben, and I have a bachelor's in apologetics.
So this is the part where we go to the topic discussion of the session. And we were going to talk about something that you were interested in for us to discuss.
Yeah, it's just, the guy who's like the Democrat who's like looking to run as a senator for Texas. Something Talarico.
James Talarico.
James, I did start with a J. I was like,
Gotta learn what I'm talking about.
My mind would go to Justin. I was like, I don't think it's Justin. So.
Yeah. But kind of as we're going through is kind of a little bit of the topics that he talks about, kind of his theology and all, as he's in Texas where we're located. He's been the nominee for the Democratic candidate for the senator, and so we will definitely in our state be hearing a lot about him as the election comes through, and to like talk about it and him and all, and how we should react.
Yeah, I mean, the first I think I had heard of him was when he went on to the Joe Rogan episode. Like I think I ended up watching it, and then I was hearing the stuff he was saying. And initially, I was like, okay, whatever. And then I heard the stuff he was saying and found out I was still dismissive in a sense, but I was like, I can't believe what this guy is saying.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of scripture here that he is twisting. But then I was like, that's not great, but oh well. And then it turns out that he's like a lead runner in Senate seat. I was like, for Texas, like, well, crap.
Mm-hmm. We have to deal with it.
Yeah, so it's. But yeah, I mean, of stuff I've heard more recently, it's not like it's all bad. It's just there's things that I could see that would probably work out, would make sense, but I would be afraid of other things he would like. I can understand like to some extent his stance or perspective on like immigration, like how to deal with the ICE situation, and just like immigration, and trying to make sure people are getting in the appropriate way, and also trying to help those who have been here, how to make it to where they could become citizens. I could see that stuff. Wasn't sure if I necessarily agreed, but I understood at least where he was coming from with that. And granted, I think or at least an example he gave of how bad things were is that they said that there was he gave an example of a family whose, I guess, daughter had been in school. Then also ICE just went and grabbed the family and put them somewhere. And I was saying, would you want, and so like, I wouldn't want ICE to be grabbing a family like that. I want them to be grabbing murderers. And I'm like, well, sure, when you put it that way, it makes sense. But what was going on there? Was it just that, or are you leaving out key details? I'm not sure, but I'm just not assuming he's being. Whenever I was hearing other things that he had mentioned just with scripture that was not exactly accurate, that's where I started thinking, okay, maybe you're not being accurate with this other information that you're giving. And so, because it had more to do with like the scripture aspect, it had to do with like him taking issue with how people are so consumed with money, which I understand that aspect, but it had to do with how the scripture he was using and how he was quoting it improperly. Like he was quoting it in a way that is popular to quote, but was actually it's a way that it's been misquoted, because he said that money is the root of all evil, and it's like, well, it doesn't say that. I can understand that money being a problem, but quote it correctly if you were bragging about being in seminary. So that's a basic one. Yeah.
I believe the verse is in Hebrews. I can pull that up. So the very end of Hebrews. So we can see exactly what the quote is, so we don't misquote it ourselves. So,
1 Timothy 6:10.
oh, it's in 1 Timothy?
Yeah, I looked it up in the index.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was in Hebrews, but I couldn't tell for sure.
I thought, yeah.
Actually, I thought it was in Proverbs, just because it sounds like a proverb. But
Yeah. 1 Timothy 6:10.
Mhm.
For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs. So, the exact quote is that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. So,
right.
it's not the...
Yeah, where she just said money is the root of all evil. It's like, no. There's a desire in there. So it's not like a big deal, but the fact that it's an often misquoted one in that same sense is like, okay, if you're going to challenge this, you need to make sure you do this correctly.
Yeah. It's one of those things of what it is. It can lead to all kinds of evil.
Yeah. Which, and I think that was his concern, was the evil that was leading to, which made sense. It's just he was not doing a good job of quoting it.
Yeah.
It was a basic fail. So, but I mean, there was that, and there's also him, the way, at least the way he made it sound like his take on homosexuality, or gay people, who are gay.
Yeah, there was something that he said about, like, the Bible doesn't talk about abortion.
Jesus never talks about abortion and gay marriage.
And for that, I'd be like, the Bible says about definitely gay marriage and homosexuality.
Yeah, never specifically. Well, I mean, I think in the Old Testament it mentions about the marriage aspect, but in the New Testament it just says gay in and of itself is a problem.
Yeah. And you see that also, you'll see that in 1 Timothy or 2 Timothy, where Paul will address that. But I always go in a way that Jesus kind of talked about it, of what Jesus said what marriage is, where it says it's between a man and a wife.
Right. Yeah.
And his wife. So in that way, what Jesus is still talking about what it is. It was in the context of divorce that Jesus was talking about it. But Jesus went with what marriage is supposed to be.
Right.
If where Jesus is getting at the core value, if you get the core values between a husband and a wife, that doesn't leave room for gay marriage.
Now, the other thing that, whenever I was watching his videos, one of the things that he has made clear is that a lot of his views of Scripture comes from his pastor, who apparently was he was an activist, but he was like some of the stuff that he was pushing for, that most of the Presbyterian church, because that's where he's connected to, that they were he got in trouble with the Presbyterian church a number of times, couple times, and because he was, I think, he said that his pastor was the first person to ordain a gay preacher, and to either marry or ordain someone to be able to marry gay people who were gay. So he thought that was, acceptable.
And that's that right there. I'm on the part that if you're gay, it's okay to be a pastor, it's definitely going to affect how you view stuff. As I think of 1 Peter 2:11, where it goes, "Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul," which is something that's going to wage war against your soul, and it's going to hurt the ministry.
Yeah.
But I would not say as Christians should ordain gay marriage.
Should what?
Should have ordained
gay
marriage.
Right.
Because for pastors and leaders, we are sinful or should be striving for Christ. And if we have that part right there, it's like we have a lot of people who are going to be not worthy of being pastors, because there are some people who are like, yes, I've murdered people before, and we're like, okay, like that's a good thing to turn around from. And if we say the same thing about like gay pastors who are in sin, and it's one of those things. But for us to say that this is a good thing by being like, hey, let's have a gay marriage in the church, it's like, that's different, because that's a part where it's saying we're saying that that's okay, that sin's okay. Where for a pastor, it's more of saying we're all sinful, but we're still trying to strive towards God.
Yeah. I mean, part of it would be like, along the lines of what you're saying, is that it can be an odd thing to hear of a pastor who is gay, who is a pastor or preacher, but it has more to do with, are they living out the lifestyle? If they're not living it out, then they're having to just fight this sin that they're dealing with. But if you find out they're married, well, that automatically makes it to where, okay, you don't need to be listening to what you're talking about, because you won't even stand on this basic truth, and so we can't trust you with anything else that you're going to preach. You may preach fine, but because you won't live this out, there's no reason to listen to what anything else you have to say. We can't trust you. So there was the other thing I found interesting was because he was talking about how abortion is that Jesus never talked about abortion, and the thing I found interesting was that he did. If I recall correctly, one of the things I saw is that he was speaking out against how Republicans are okay with murder, and like how can you and I think he's more specifically referring to Christians who are Republican who are okay with that. I think I could be wrong about that, but he was like speaking out about how they were they were fine with murder and stuff like this because the administrations will do it and with different things that have happened, they're fine with murder, and how's this okay? And it's like, well, okay, how can you say that but God never speaks about abortion? Just be consistent.
Yeah. I mean, for it, I can see for him being angry in certain situations, because I would have to see when he said it, because my thought would be probably after the Alex Preddy shooting and Jane Goodwin shootings, to be like, why are we promoting this when most of the time there should be an investigation?
Sure, but
and if there's no investigation, you'd be like, this is a murder.
Right. I mean, that to me makes sense. It has more to do with to respond to something in that sense, but to be like, there's nothing wrong with abortion. Like, how can you hold those two different views?
Yeah,
one of those is clearly innocent.
Yeah. One of that is the clip I saw of the Joe Rogan show. I didn't see all of it. One of the clips was how he used Mary as the example, and I was like,
consent.
I was like,
yeah.
This is a weird way to go about it. It's like God does consent. I'm like, there are some times where God doesn't seem to ask her.
Now, one thing that
but it's also how does that get into it? Because it's more at the part where this is being conceived right here. That seems to be more of the consent part right there. Afterwards, what happens there, that seems to be where the issue happens.
What are you referring to?
So he's making the argument that it's consent. So, like, the decision to have the baby is there. The important part is that the husband and the wife decided to have the kid together.
Mm-hmm.
And if they did not decide it later on, that part right there is like, oh, it's okay because there was not consent over here, but they still did the act. And it's like, that is not, I think that's a bad reasoning where beforehand there are stuff that you could do around the time of consent of like, oh, you could have used contraceptives, you could have done other sort of things to stop. But
so you're saying that because they decided afterwards that they were not consenting, that is that where you're talking? Is that connection to abortion?
That
Or
where it's a
something
bad
else?
connection
Okay.
for abortion because
that's the connection he was making.
it seems to be like the
Okay.
connection right
Gotcha.
there is that it's the part right there at the beginning where consenting in the act of making a child
Mm-hmm.
that is
right.
that part over there determines if it's okay further down.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, it's like that is a bad argument to have right there, to be like, this act causes you have babies and such, this act right here,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not fully planning for it right there in a wise way, because if that happens, we have this situation, and because we didn't fully prepare over here, this baby's going to face the consequences of it, and I don't think.
Right. Okay. When you say that they didn't fully prepare, you mean like after she turns out she's pregnant, they hadn't thought enough through, so it's okay for her to.
No, more of like where I said like contraceptives, or there are stuff like before the cheek you can do to be like.
So at what point are they referring to that they consented but then changed their mind? That's the part I'm getting confused on.
Is the act,
Mm-hmm.
and
So like in the middle of the act, they changed their mind.
no, not it's the part that they decided to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not thinking of the consequences fully of it, to be like, we're going to do this, there's a chance for it right here. And
So he's saying he was saying that if they hadn't fully realized the consequences, then that's when it's acceptable to handle it in a different way.
he said that they had to consent,
Mm-hmm.
even if they don't do everything to prepare. So be like, oh, we're going to do this act, we don't want a kid, but we're still
Right.
going to do this.
Okay.
And a baby's coming, but they consented on the act.
Right.
But the act
I got it. Okay.
makes babies.
Right. So they were consenting on, but they were not actually consenting on having a baby, or like that wasn't the part that they were discussing. It was just the thing beforehand. I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna have to put this now on age restriction. I'm just thinking of for later. I'm gonna post this. But yeah. So now that's out of the bag, or I just have to bleep that out.
Bleep it out. It said,
gonna be
it was
hard.
said one time.
Yeah. Yeah. So for that, they wanted to do it, but they weren't. They consented to that, but they're not. They're saying we want to do that, but we don't want the other part that comes with it.
Right. Yeah. I gotcha.
And there are ways for the other part that you can prepare to be like, as I said, contraceptives,
Right.
condoms, and such like that.
Yeah, I didn't remember that part of it as much. The thing that stuck out to me more had to do with when that could partially also because that's the aspect I rewatched, like the clip I rewatched because of trying to remember what he said. But it had more to do with Mary and how, his explanation to how she consented.
Yeah.
And to be fair, what he did say was that this was how he viewed her consenting. He wasn't necessarily saying this is the understanding of her consenting. It's like, this is how I see that she consented. And so therefore it was showing that whenever the angel let her know about having the child, and she basically said, let it be done.
Yeah.
And that was her way of consenting. And so God's never going to force on you. He's always going to make sure you're consenting to it, because that's how sacred creation, this act of creation is. I heard that. I was like, well, I mean, at least you're saying that this is your way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, no one has ever thought of it being like that before. He just let you know, this is what I'm doing. And if it almost seemed like if she would not have agreed to it, or would have been more hesitant about it, there would have probably been, what do you call it? Not necessarily, not the word penalties, but there would have been something. It seemed like there would have been some actions taken, because there was actions taken against Zacchaeus whenever he questioned.
Or Zacharias,
that's right.
Yeah.
Whenever he questioned how the whole thing was happening. Just because you questioned, now you're in trouble.
Yeah.
It's like, there was no consent there, was there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in a way you can, but I think if you look at it in the sense of abortion, it doesn't make sense. But you can view it in the sense of how God views it as important right there. But for abortion, I don't think that's a good that's not a good example of
right
how it is. Because as you said, Zacharias, like, where was Elizabeth in all of this?
She didn't consent.
It was just gonna happen, and Zacharias is gonna be like, he can't say anything. Probably can write, but it's like, how do you explain this?
Yeah. Now I imagine that part of, because this is the argument I've heard with the whole idea of homosexuality, is that there's this argument from progressive Christians, I guess, that the Bible has mistranslated the word homosexuality, and that it's not actually opposed to homosexuality. It's opposed to it's opposed to older and younger people, like really young people, being sexual.
Yeah.
And so basically like a minor to an adult. That's what it was talking. That's what they claim it was talking about. And there's this one guy who I would say is probably along the progressive side of a Christian, and he had done the research on this stuff because he was trying to figure out stuff with transgender and all the other stuff. And when he looked at the meaning of the word, he's like, no, in the I guess it's Greek or something, whatever you look at the actual meaning of the word, what it's not suggesting, for one, because the other argument is that it's
like prostitutes or something like that.
What they're claiming is that I guess the conservatives believe that just having those feelings, or in a sense, just having those desires or feelings, in the sense of being gay, in that sense, not acting on it, but being it, is the sin, is what they're suggesting. That's their claim whenever it says that homosexuals will go to hell. And so they're saying, well, you're making it like it's this, but it's not that. But that would be a problem. And so that's part of where the argument is that it doesn't mean that. What it means is that like whenever you look at what it means, is the act. Once you've actually done the act, that's the problem. It's not that you have desires for it. The thing is, those who are acting out or acting on it, those are the ones who will be going to hell.
I was like the part I think of in Romans where Paul goes like, if we grow like the relationships that the Lord has made for like man with a man and a woman with a woman and then man with beast.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's like that seems pretty much like where he goes. Seems a spelled out
Yeah.
spelled out how
Yeah.
what the issue is.
Here are the
right?
different things you can't do. All involving that.
It was like, oh, they mistranslated this one word, and then it's
Yeah.
like, Paul seems to be spelling it out, right?
Getting awfully specific. Yeah. Yeah, I think what their claim was that he was more referring to like, minors with adults, and that's what they're trying to change. And this guy was like, no, what he was saying was that conservatives tend to have it wrong. Is that they're just living, you're just feeling that way, or you're claiming to be gay. That's where you are going to help because of that. And he was saying, no, it's the act aspect. It's like whenever you are acting on it, that's where the issue. And I was like, well, that's how I understood it. Was that it wasn't that okay? You have this desire, even if you're not giving into it, it's still you're still sinning just by having those feelings and that's the way you are. It's like that's not how I understood it growing up. It's like it was the important thing of if you act on it, that's where you mess up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he was saying was like, yeah, it's only those who were doing the act that's where God was saying, okay, this is a problem now. And but yeah, that is my guess of what that guy is suggesting with where he's saying that it's not an issue, is that there's a misunderstanding that it's probably being minors to adults. And if that's the case, because that seems to be the more popular argument right now with progressive Christians, which is why they also suggest that the LGBTQ is acceptable within certain denominations have accepted them because of that argument, from what I understand. Yeah. And so because of that, so I'm assuming he has that same argument. I could be wrong, but if that's the case, it's like, well, no, that's not what it's talking about. But then again, his seminary seems to, assuming he's actually, going along with what they're talking about, and he's studying under them, they have wonky beliefs. It's like it's a questionable seminary.
Yeah, I'm going more for it's a questionable seminary because I've listened to 2 of his sermons.
Yeah.
And some of the notes that I've put on it, one that he says, like, there are many, I believe what he said was there are many ways to the sacred.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that today. I wasn't aware of that before. I was like, I think with the different ways he was saying, I was like, are you trying to say there's different ways to heaven? Or what are you saying? It was like, sure enough, he finally essentially came out and said, I was like, okay, this actually makes a lot of sense.
And I was like, somebody hasn't gone to John yet in his seminary.
Yeah, it's like, because part of what I do is like he just considers them different traditions. Basically, it's like there's a Christian, and then there's a Hindu tradition, and there's the other traditions, but they all have their own way of getting there. It's like, so what do you do with Jesus saying, "I am the way, the truth, and life"? Answer that one.
Yeah, there's Jesus is narrowing it down there, and then there's also, if you look at the part where Jesus claims to be God, and in the Jewish at that time, what he said was like, I am what I am.
Yeah.
Which is God's name. Which is what you don't say that unless you're referring to God. And so Jesus claims himself as God. And so out of all these people, which I hear him like Gandhi, Buddha, Muhammad, and other preachers of different religions, just of what he's saying right there of like, I am God, is a big statement.
Right, yeah. Now,
there.
I will say another thing that I personally didn't necessarily care for, but you might have a different opinion of this, had to do with him talking about how he was talking to some a governor or a Congress meeting or whatever, but he had some people who had made a teacher's curriculum, and he was talking about the different stuff that was in there. It had specifically had to do with religious stuff, and it's like it wasn't a religious book, but they were using different religious texts to as examples for some grammatical stuff. But apparently, they were utilizing a mixture of religious texts, but I think that they were leaning more heavily into Christian text as a way of proofreading and stuff like that, as a way of teaching. And from what I understand, he also took issue with a couple of things, but with that, another thing he took issue with had to do with he didn't think that there was equal amount of representation within the thing. And so it would be an issue for other religions to do this if it was more so focused on the Christian faith being utilized for this. But then there was also this whole thing, a thing where I guess he thought it was important to have a distinguishment between the Jewish faith, Judaism, and the Christian faith. And they were using the Christian faith to talk about the Old Testament and the Jewish laws from the Old Testament, or the Old Testament commandments. Yeah. But he thought it was important to make a distinction for that is Jewish laws, not Christian laws. And so he didn't like that they weren't making that distinction. I heard that, I was like, I think you're getting picky. Because Christians refer to that as that they are familiar with it, and they refer to it as the Old Testament. He thought they just referred to it as like the Tanakh. I think it was called what it's called. And so he was like offended that they didn't, that they were just calling it Old Testament. He's like, the Jews wouldn't call it that. It's like, let's be real. We know where we are. If you were in Israel or something like that, I could see the complaint. Yeah. But you're here. We know what that means. And so I would have a hard time thinking that, I could be wrong, but I wouldn't think a Jewish person being here would take that much offense to that because they know where they're at.
Yeah, I think for it, that part would be hard. I could see more of the arguments of trying to balance more of different religious texts. I can see that argument being made a better one, but the part with like the Judaism with the Old and New Testament right there, that I think is more nitpicky. The other part where I think is where you get a better look at, if you're able to compare different religious texts, gives you more opportunity to actually compare them, to actually put them to the test for.
Right, yeah. But the other thing I found interesting was, because he was opposed to where they were looking to put the Ten Commandments back in the schools, plaque of it, I think.
Yeah.
And he was opposed to it. But his reasoning for it was that other religions might feel inferior. And my thinking was, well, if you're a Christian, what do you think other religions are? Are they on par? I don't think you think that. So and I'm sure that it was more along the lines, he didn't, that as a political person, he saw it as, you can't really say that other religions are inferior, but if you were, he's making a reputation as being a Christian person running for Senate. He's not like, he's making a point to say his faith dictates stuff. So whenever he's also saying that, we're making it out like their other religions are inferior, that their religions are going to feel inferior. And it's like, well, that is how you view it as a Christian.
For the Christians view that this is the truth, and like, there's nothing else.
Yeah.
And so I can, as a Christian, you'd be like, no, I would like the Old Testament. If you're going for more of American, that would be the part that we have to treat all religions equal.
Yeah, at the same time, when it comes to the Ten Commandment plaque, I'm not entirely sure what to think of that one, just because, as far as I understand, there was a period of time where we had it in the public schools, and it wasn't a problem. I think we've just become more unnecessarily picky about this stuff. Perhaps problematically picky. Is that?
Yeah, I think, in like our day and age where we probably have more of it, I think what it should be is that more of local schools should be able to decide if they want it or not. I think it's a harder thing on a statewide to do it, but if you have a local one, it'd be like, hey, we would like to put this up to a vote within the community to decide, and the kind of it goes more to the community.
Right.
So I think that would probably be a better solution than having it on a large scale like that. And so where it can be probably better targeted for people. And if you're a Christian, it's better, I would say, that to have it targeted like that.
Yeah, because I think that the main ones that are the issue is the first commandment, because no other gods.
Yeah.
And making no other
idols.
Yeah, and so I could see those are the two main ones that would be the issue, which would make all the other which you're then making it known because of those first two that all other religions are not legit. So beyond that, all the other commandments on there tend to be understood as everyone would agree to them. Yeah. And if you don't, we're going to have problems. So.
And if you don't put it in there, it's not the Ten Commandments.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. But I was still thinking for like with his sermons of how it's you're calling like other traditions to like the sacred.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I was viewing it more as the coexist.
Yeah, I was the same thing.
With a Christian emphasis on it, that he's viewing Christianity in this light of it's a pathway to it, but it's everyone's similar. It's coexist is more of like we all have our different things. We have our different ways of life, and we can live on this earth peacefully. Where his one seems to be more of a coexist, that it's all everybody's coming towards the same point. Everybody's going to the mountaintop.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Which is like, that's not how it works.
Right.
And unfortunately for me, it's like, with other parts that he's talked about, I'm like, that sounds like good of what I say, behavior of what a Christian should be. But I've also have it that this other part of the deep theology of which you're coming at it from is flawed.
Right. I mean, yeah, I know myself that whenever I was hearing this stuff, it's like there's some things I could see how it could be at least persuasive what he's saying, but the trouble I see is that his theology in general on a lot of things is just like the trouble I'm having now is I wouldn't trust the policies you would be making on just. I mean, I could see how it would probably work out for like I could see that immigration. Whenever you're dealing with stuff like that, I could see how that could be, that's a sort of indifferent type of thing. It depends on how passionate you are about that. But whenever you're dealing with like the LGBTQ, gender stuff and abortion, all other stuff, his theology on that is pretty goofy, and so you couldn't trust that when those policies come in front of him, that he'd be making good decisions. He seems like he'd be thinking he's being wise and just screwing around with stuff.
Yeah. I put it for self of like not having the core theology for it to be like to understand where it's wrong and where to actually have a more balanced approach in governance. With it to be like, okay, as I put it, like there's a community that is being marginalized, but it's also wrong, and knowing that, because I put it down that like it is sin, like homosexuality is a sin,
Right.
but it's also a marginalized community in certain areas of the country.
Right.
And so we're to be kind and show the love of Christ for it to them is not in the way of being like, hey, you're going to hell, like change, or we're going to make it so hard that you can't get a job.
Right.
But to be like, hey, like the church says this is wrong. We can't allow this sin,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't let you have like if you have it like at this bar or this place for it, even though it's wrong, I don't like it, but I can't be like condemning throwing mocktails into like the house or
yeah.
like that you deserve death for this. I'm like, no.
Right.
It's like, this is not.
We'll let God deal with that. Yeah, no, it's not something where you're supposed to be violent towards them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between saying it's wrong and actually being violent towards the person because of that. Even if they're in that lifestyle, you're not supposed to be violent towards them.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that you are accepting of it. Even like whenever it comes to, like you mentioned, the bars, I would still. It'd be a type of thing where, like, well, if you want to build it, I'm not thrilled with it, but I'm not so sure I would stop it. But because at the same time,
I'm not going to it.
Yeah. At the same time, the other issue I think you could run into, is stuff that might, depending on, well, I mean, you would come into that, honestly, just at any bar, depending on the situation, but, like, you know, there's certain, like, diseases and stuff you can get from certain acts and whatnot, so it would become more of an issue with that. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'm not sure we need to be dealing with these. Yeah. So, but aside from that, it's like, I wouldn't be helping you build it, but, you know, if you guys want to put in the effort, that's, I guess, do it. But it'll probably be the type of thing where you do it, but we'll probably be putting a bit of restrictions on certain things for the public itself.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what those would be, but whatever ends up happening to be an issue, we'd have to deal with it.
Yeah.
As it comes about.
Yeah. But also, now going back to the James Talarico, I know one of his big message, which you alluded to at the very beginning, was where he misquoted it of like money is the root of all evils, or it's the root of all kinds of evils. Is that one of his big messages? Is that of like corporate greed, it's the top versus the bottom.
Right. Yeah. He's like constantly one of the things he talked about is how he's going to, because there shouldn't be, I think, is Elon Musk fixed to be a trillionaire or is it a billionaire?
Trillionaire.
He's not billionaire. Obviously, he's a billionaire. He's like several hundred billionaire.
Yeah, like 300, 400 billion.
Yeah, he's fixed to be a trillionaire. And what he was saying is that he would be making it to where you would have taxes so high that for the wealthy that he may no longer be a trillionaire.
Yeah.
Because of how much it would take. Because basically the whole idea is that no one should have that much wealth that would keep other people from being able to have money. And so you should take that money and make sure other people get it. So he mean that those people who were billionaires, trillionaires, they may no longer have that much money because he would tax them so high on stuff. And I'm not sure what to think of that. I mean, I don't like the idea of essentially punishing someone for becoming wealthy. It depends on how you go about it, obviously. Yeah. But if you're doing it in a decent manner, you're a great businessman. To essentially punish them for that by making sure you take most of their money because they supposedly don't need all of it, it's just like, well, I mean, it depends if that is actually a hindrance to other people. If it is actually keeping other people poor, I understand that. If it is just something you're making an argument for, but it's not actually affecting these people in the way you're suggesting, you just like the idea of taking their money because it makes it easier for you to be able to use that money for something else, that's a different situation. And no, you don't punish them for being able to handle things well. But if it is, like I said, if it is legitimately keeping people being poor, then I could see that being an issue. I don't know if it affects that way.
Yeah, because I do say like for it's a bit of an issue because there is something of like, I think definitely the thought of like there's a thing of being too successful if that you're actually taking more wealth from other people that actually can be used across the world, because there's, for wealth generation, one is where you're creating and one where that's actually just you're taking.
Hoarding, I'm
but like say like that every person if they do their tasks, there is amount of money that into technically the world economy, or that it adds to the world economy in a sense, to be like this person, he might be adding $15 to his wealth, but the work that he actually does to the total world economy is like $30.
So being a benefit to the world.
So, but
that's what you're getting at.
But what I'm saying is like he's earning 15, but what he's actually adding to the world economy is 30. Like
right, so
the general wealth of the world, he's actually adding 30. But if you have it that you have one person that is going, where that $30 can be spread out throughout like the community and such, and you have this one person that's like, hey, like $15 is, it boosts the economy of like, would be like the community, like the neighborhood gets nicer, the hospitals get nicer, the country gets richer. But if you actually have that $30 and you have $5 of that 15 that's supposed to go more of into the whole general world economy is going to one person, that's going to be more of an issue. Would be like, if he was like getting a cent from it, but he was getting like $5 from it, that's more of the wealth that was supposed to go throughout the whole world is being targeted into one person. Because I heard a number recently that you have 8 of the richest people richer than 3.6 billion people.
Okay. Like, yeah, you said 8?
8 people.
8 people who are wealthier than everyone else.
Than half the world's population.
You said 3.6?
6 billion.
Okay.
People.
Right.
So it would take all their money to possibly shift how things are possibly doing in the world compared to what 8 people can do just with money.
Right. I haven't looked into it myself, but I've also heard that because like there is an argument, like for instance, whenever Elon Musk bought Twitter, and for how much he bought for it, they say you could have fed a third world country with that kind of thing, and there's an argument that I guess whenever they've done the math, that it doesn't feed as much as you think. It doesn't, him having, just because it has that money doesn't mean it actually solves the problem like people tend to think it does. I'm not sure how necessarily true that is, but that's what an argument that has been made. It's like, you guys don't realize that this doesn't go as far as does he have a lot of money? Yes, he has a lot of money, but it's not to suggest that he's the reason why people are starving. I think that's the idea.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that, where it's, people go for like logistics and all right there, and for where food goes.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of, I think, for the idea of like, could you be using your money for better things? Because for it, I think he bought it like for like $50 billion or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, not quite that much, but yeah, around there.
Yeah, and so you could, like, there are definitely in some like third world countries where like their budget's like 30 billion, and you could definitely feed the hungry there. But the question becomes then of it's not when you do it, it's not an instant solution.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, he put $50 billion in to feed the hungry. It's like, okay, we've got to actually have the money go towards one is the crops, the farmers, and then get the food over there.
Then hope that you have other leaders in that country who don't try and hoard it for themselves.
Yeah,
because that has been the other problem that
there's been recently that how famine is being created nowadays.
People try to be generous, and then the essential evil leaders are like, no, we'll just take that money for ourselves. Enjoy. We'll give you a crumb.
Or they block the food from coming in. That's most of what famine is right now, is people in charge to be like, oh, you're sending food and aid? You're not allowed in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not, the food's there, but
I guess I'm thinking more of like not whenever you specifically send in food and aid, but when you give them money to take care of that. And then usually the people there are certain groups who will just basically take that money.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're probably hoping that a person with $1 billion knows possibly how to do it, but not all the time. I've seen plenty of millionaires and billionaires be like, I didn't know what was going on, and like, even though you sent your money,
I thought you were better with your money. There's a reason why you had so much.
Yeah. But for it, I would put it that people using money for influence in ways that doesn't allow for actually, in a general sense, to be like, oh, if a community wants to do this one sort of thing, you can look at like a town of like 50,000 and you have 45,000 who are against this new project.
Mm-hmm.
And they can rate, and you look at all their income together, and it's like, okay, the entire town's income is like 20 million. And they're saying they're against it. But this business person comes in and says, I will do this for 50 million. Yet all your people in your town says no.
Mm-hmm.
But this one person who wants to do it, who has more money than your town, will put in your town, but you won't listen to your town because they don't have the money to verse the person with 50 million.
Right.
Yet everybody there says no.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it becomes where he views as, I think James Talarico views how money can influence people to do things that's not actually in the best interest.
So, did he give that example, or were you giving that example?
That's what the example I got
okay.
there. But
I hadn't really heard much of what he said. One of the
examples he has was that there was 2 billionaires in West Texas. I believe with what you were saying with the schools, like with the Christian curriculum, where they're billionaires and they're pastors of their own churches and all, but they're billionaires and they send money to the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general.
Right. I remember saying something about that.
Where?
I forget what exactly it said, but that they had affected it because of how much money they had, or that he said that it was some I think it was with the Ten Commandment thing that there were some wealthy people who were trying to get it in, and they managed to stop them from being able to do it, despite the fact that they were like the wealthiest guys in Texas.
Yeah.
I don't know how he said they were able to stop it, but
Yeah, it was something that like the House, I think, possibly voted against it or something of this Texas state. But the governor and lieutenant governor were trying to do a workaround
I see.
for it because of the large donation right there.
Right, I gotcha. Okay.
And so that's the part where you would have it where you have two billionaires suddenly go like to somebody in power, be like, hey, here's a bunch of money, do this. And what happens is the leader tries to do a workaround without actually going through the proper methods.
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, I can see that being an issue, but for what they were specifically trying to do, would that have been an issue?
I mean, I like for people to hear about the Ten Commandments, but I would put it as kind of an example that we're going for James Talarico of starting from a bad spot, trying to do a good result, trying to go with the ends justify the means.
So is it a bad result because it's possible most people don't want it, or what makes it a bad result?
They spent money to try to get around the law to put it in, of how should have been through.
Oh, because Congress is supposed to vote and you're trying to get around that, then that's a problem?
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay.
It wasn't the idea of practically trying to put the law to benefit yourself without actually going through the law. And in Isaiah, I believe God does not like that, where he says you made the laws to benefit yourself.
Right. I'm just not entirely sure how that would have benefited them. I'm not sure how exactly that falls under them. I guess what I'm thinking of, because it wasn't like they wanted say they wanted the Ten Commandments, and has that exactly benefit them aside from the kids now are now learning about the Ten Commandments?
Yeah. In it, I don't say for the Ten Commandments is wrong. The problem is how you go about it. And I think a lot of Christian settings in the past, how you go about it is actually important, where God wants you to be honest with how you do it. We had an example of a friend who was talking about how he was referring to how morals were set in the past of how the Odyssey was and how Jason would go about stuff, and we would read it and he's lying and cheating, but he gets stuff at the end, and we would be like, that's completely wrong what he's doing. But in that culture, it was something that was okay, because in the end he was richer and stronger.
Right.
At the end, where there's a specific morality that applies to everybody. And that is the idea of there's a general morality that should be applied right there. And if you're kind of trying to go about it,
so I wonder, if not to say that it makes it a better situation, but so I wonder is the two wealthy guys who were trying to get the Ten Commandments put in, if it was a type of thing where, so there's something I had heard probably past couple of years or whatever, of it being said that when the Ten Commandments, things were morally better, but when they removed the Ten Commandments from the schools, that over time the kids started, in a sense, not behaving worse and worse. They didn't have something to, remind them, or they didn't have something that they could that they would see in schools each time, and kind of give them that thought. Like they just kind of were like, they didn't have that to guide them in a sense. And so it appeared as though, since we've had the Ten Commandments removed for the past at least few decades, that it has made it easier for kids to start misbehaving because they didn't have those commandments. And so if we were to start putting those commandments in, that it would give them something to look to and something to help them see these basic things are good. And so what I'm wondering is if those guys heard that story. And so their thought behind it was, okay, Congress may not go along with this unless we pay them a lot of money. And we're paying them a lot of money because this is a good thing to have in schools for the kids. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder if that was the idea behind it. And so, because I could kind of see them having that simplistic mind with a religious thing. Because it seems like I've heard that before. Like, well, we just thought this because this is like, okay, you're wealthy and you thought this simplistically about this. It's like, okay, well.
I go for more of a correlation, because there was other people who would probably say there are other things back in the past that we did of like, oh, we actually respected teachers. Like, we would actually spend money on our schools. Because that's when we actually spent money on our schools, kids were more obedient at the same time.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Okay.
It's like it's a correlation, not a
right. I'm not suggesting that's actually why it happened. I'm wondering if maybe they heard that story.
So,
like it's because I think it's a semi-popular story, so I couldn't help but wonder if maybe they heard that, and so that was their thoughts. Hey, maybe this will help fix things. So we put into so their idea is to put money toward a lot of money towards that since they have it, to be able to influence, because who doesn't influence these days? Yeah. So it's like, okay, if everyone else does it, might as well we do it. Okay, one wrong doesn't make it fixes the rest of the solution. So I can see that big a mindset behind it. It's like not seeing it as we were trying to do a bad thing. It's like we may not have handled it the best way, even knowingly, but we did it for the right reasons, type of thing. I can see that being the case. I mean, in general, you should probably have Congress or whatever vote on that. Yeah. But I guess it also depends on how screwed up Congress is these days. So
I have to say, there are different ways for the Texas state legislature needs to be fixed. One is that we need to stop having just a 4-month time period that they make the laws. So, and that's only every 2 years.
4-month time period, what do you mean?
So the time period that the Texas state legislature is in session, I believe, is from January to the end of April.
Right.
And then you have to wait 2 years before that legislature is back in session.
So they pretty much just do it once.
They just do it once every 2 years.
Yeah, okay.
And so it's like, why is this in our state constitution? And so, and they only get paid like $900 a month if you're a state legislature.
They get paid $900 a month?
Yep.
For the whole year?
So probably, for the whole year. So that gets about like $4,000 for about close to $4,000 for 4 months of work.
I mean, if they're only there for half a year once every election.
Every midterm, but for it, people go that it puts in the position that there's a lot of lobbying of their thing just goes for their apartments of where they live in. And if you offer them lunch, they will happily take your lunch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They'll be like, if you pay for any other my things, I'm like...
Right.
It's one of those things of the idea of pay too little, you give them to be bribed easily. Pay them too much, they will take bribes because they expect themselves to get it or think of themselves too much.
Right.
And I think that's the part where James Talarico goes, is how certain parts of money is some people are getting paid too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a hard time seeing that, but I also don't know nearly enough about how everything works out to where the possibility of getting paid too much does it actually take money from other people. I don't know how much of that is that actually a real thing, or if it's just something that people say that is maybe semi-true or not even true. I'm not really sure. I can see it making sense because there's only you would think there's only so much money to go around, but is that actually the case?
If the view is that there's only a certain amount of money to go around, in the United States, there should be kind of a way of limit of how much money we should be printing, but we're actually kind of bad at that right now since 2008.
Yeah, we've been bad for a while.
It was something where we would only print about like $900 billion into the economy at a time. Then 2008, we're doing like $2 or $3 trillion now since of that time.
Yeah, and so another thing I have, or an explanation I've had of that is that while it hurts the economy in general, the immediate people who are trying to get to work, it works well for them, and then it screws everyone else up because that money is actually stable while they're using it. But once it gets down to us, doesn't mean squat. So it's like, of course, that right there is just pure selfishness.
The thing is, we're still doing it right here.
Yeah.
So it's practically since 2008 where we had more of a balance of like lower amount. Mm-hmm. We just keep pushing it up. We're not going back down. So printing less money. We're just like
it's one of those things where they're like, they don't stop printing more money. They're just not printing as much as the more money they are doing. It's like, okay, that's so much better.
Like last year we printed $2 trillion. We're only doing 2.1 trillion this year.
Yeah.
And so we're, but with that, it's the idea that there's a limit of how much is out there, and where it goes is key. If you're saying that certain things generate more money,
right?
So you can go with some fields be like generate more money, but if you have it in a certain way that certain people are getting the most of it, to be like, so we printed out this year $2 trillion, and you get a guy that gets like 200 billion. Mm-hmm. You're looking at somebody who just got 10% of that year's wealth that was made.
Right.
I would probably say that's probably an issue.
Is that someone who was owed money? Because I know that's one of the other issues we've had is that people complain about how much money forking out the things, and they'll say, well, this is actually money that we are in debt with. The money that we're paying that you're complaining about is actually money we're in debt with, and we have to pay it. I don't know if it's to a specific person or if it's just to like countries or organizations, but
because I learned recently that most of our debt is actually to like companies and America itself. Like 60% of our debt is to ourselves, and then like 30% of it's actually to foreign countries.
It's better than I thought. Actually, most of our debt was in foreign countries.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I was like, I was interested in that. I was like, okay, how's this?
How about you forgive a little bit? Be a patriot.
Yeah. With that, I think that will be the end for today. So, thank you all for watching. If you like what we discussed, please leave a like and subscribe or follow, depending on what platform you are watching or listening this to. With that, thank you for watching, and see you again later. Bye.